My daughter looked radiant in lace. Not the kind of radiant people throw around at weddings to be polite, but the real kind. The kind that makes your throat close up, because you know the girl in front of you has no idea what she's walking into. I watched her from my porch that morning, white dress clutched in one hand, a slice of toast in the other, barefoot and humming. That's the last moment I remember before everything tilted. She wasn't supposed to marry someone like Lucas. I had kept my mouth shut through their 2-year courtship, measured, charming, full of extravagant gestures that seemed just a bit rehearsed, the kind of man who always has a toothpick in his mouth or a solution in his back pocket, but never once did I see him listen. Still, I smiled through the planning, hosted the rehearsal dinner, even sewed the pearls onto her veil myself. That's what mothers do. What I didn't do was tell her about the $5 million her grandfather left me before he died. She thought her grandpa died with a modest pension, a cabin in Lake George, and a fondness for crossword puzzles. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that the cabin had been quietly sold before his 3rd stroke, and the proceeds invested in a trust under my maiden name, $5 million clean, legal, quiet. I had never touched a dime. It was never meant to be a secret out of shame. It was armor. Money changes people. I had seen it turn my brother into a stranger. I wasn't going to let it do the same to my daughter. Not unless she needed it. Not unless I was gone. But then came the honeymoon. 3 days after the wedding, I got an email from a law office in Raleigh, Evans and Dean. Subject line preliminary, inquiry regarding family trust disclosure. I blinked at the words, then read them again. And again, they referenced my trust by name and asked for verification of holdings. The hairs on the back of my neck lifted like static. There were only 2 ways they could have known about that trust. Either someone had hacked into my files, or my daughter had looked. I tried to tell myself it was coincidence, that maybe the law firm had the wrong Marion Doyle. But then came the second email. This one attached a PDF. It was a suggested addendum to marriage-based asset consolidation. My name sat on page 2 under a line that read, "In the event of incapacitation or death, the full trust sum shall transfer to the beneficiary's sole heir and their legal spouse." I stared at that sentence for 10 whole minutes, not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. Lucas was reaching, and my daughter, my only daughter, had either handed him the map or helped him draw it. That night I sat on the back porch, feet tucked under me, laptop closed, untouched tea going cold beside me. I tried to rewind to find the moment she had started seeing me as a vault, not a mother. When she was 9 and scraped her knees, I carried her 3 blocks home in the rain. When she got rejected from her first-choice college, I stayed up baking until 3 a.m., just so she'd wake up to her favorite scones. And now she was either stealing from me or letting someone else do it. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was the silence. She hadn't said a word, no heads up, no explanation, just a paper trail and a legal ambush. I took a breath so deep it trembled. If they wanted war, they'd have it. But first I had to know the truth. Did she do this with him or for him? Because there's a world of difference between those two. And only one could be forgiven. I hadn't heard her voice in 4 days. Not a text, not a call, not a mother-daughter meme. That silence rang louder than any betrayal, because that's what guilt does. It hides in the dark, hoping you'll forget to look under the bed. So I looked. I called her first, straight to voicemail. Then I emailed. Everything okay, innocent, almost sweet. No response. On the 5th day, I drove to their condo, the one I'd helped co-sign when Lucas's startup funds were temporarily tied up. I stood on the sidewalk watching the 2nd-floor balcony where she used to hang string lights and drink tea at dusk. The windows were dark. I almost turned back. Then the elevator pinged, and out they came. He carried a paper bag. She wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. When she saw me, she paused. Her lips parted like she might smile, might explain, but then he touched the small of her back, subtle but firm. And just like that, her shoulders folded inward. That was when the fear arrived. Not mine, hers, because I know my daughter. I know how she stands when she's proud, how her voice lifts when she's hiding something small but harmless, like a surprise party or a secret tattoo. This was not that. This was a woman walking beside a man who'd already started erasing her. I forced my face into something motherly. "Sweetheart," I said. Lucas smiled like a politician. "Hey, Marion." He always used my first name even after I told him not to. His tone made it sound like an insult. and an afterthought, all rolled into one. "I've been trying to reach you," I said to her. She shifted her purse strap. "Yeah, sorry. We've just been busy. Lucas jumped in. New legal stuff. We've been talking to the folks at Evans and Dean, super sharp team. Just getting ahead of some estate things. You know how it is. He said it like we were business partners. Like we shared secrets. Like he knew." I nodded very slowly. "Of course," I said, "but I didn't know my estate was on the table." Sophia flinched. Lucas didn't. Well, not officially. Yet he said, chuckling, "Just wanted to make sure everyone's aligned, so if anything ever happened..." He trailed off, shrugging. I looked at my daughter. "If something ever happened to me, Sophia, do you think your first instinct should be legal paperwork?" She bit her lip. "Mom, it's not like that. I didn't mean for Lucas, just wanted to." "She's just being cautious." He interrupted, his hand tightening ever so slightly on her back. There it was again. Control. He was coaching her even as she stood there like a puppeteer, too lazy to hide the strings. "I see," I said softly. "Well then, maybe it's time I get a lawyer too." Lucas's smile twitched. "No need to get dramatic, Marion." I stepped closer, close enough to smell his expensive cologne, and the lie curled behind it. "I'm not being dramatic," I said. "I'm being maternal." And then I left. I got into my car, hands shaking. Not from fear, from fury. But beneath the fury was something colder, older, a quiet dread that whispered, "She's not just lying to you. She's lying for him, and you taught her better." Back home, I opened the old fireproof box I hadn't touched in a decade. Inside were the original trust documents, the ones with my father's signature, the ones that proved everything was mine and mine alone. But they wouldn't be enough. I'd seen Lucas's type before, men who knew how to smile while they dismantled you. He wouldn't come through the front door. He'd come through hers, through her phone, her passwords, her doubt, through the love I taught her to give too easily, and that terrified me more than any legal ambush. Because if he was playing the long game, she was already halfway gone. You always know when a man stops pretending. It's not the shouting. It's not the slammed doors. It's when he doesn't need to smile anymore. It happened 3 days later in my own kitchen. Lucas came alone. No text ahead, no invitation, just knocked like we were old friends. I was chopping onions. The knife didn't pause when I saw his reflection in the glass. I figured it was time we had a little heart-to-heart, he said, stepping inside without waiting. That's when I knew he wasn't afraid. I dried my hands on a dish towel and said nothing. He made himself comfortable, as men like him do, leaned against the counter, arms folded like he was the one hosting. "Sophia's been rattled," he began. "I know this whole estate thing is sensitive, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page." "Is that what you call it now?" I asked. "Page alignment," he chuckled. "You're sharp. I respect that." Then slowly he set a thick envelope on the counter between us. The paper inside smelled like toner and fresh ambition. "I thought this might clear things up," he said. "It's a joint asset transfer document. Simple stuff. Just lets you earmark a portion of your holdings toward a family trust. Nothing binding yet. Just intention." I didn't touch it. "You want me to give you money before I'm dead?" I asked. "No," he smiled. "I want you to give Sophia peace of mind." There it was. He didn't even flinch when he said her name, like she was a currency we both traded in. "Tell me something." "Lucas," I said, my voice low, "if I signed that paper today, would you still be standing here a year from now?" 2-5. He blinked, and that tiny flicker, that 1 second of hesitation, was the moment his mask slid. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'd say that depends on how generous the family feels." I stepped forward until we were almost nose to nose. "If you ever speak about my daughter like she's a transaction again," I said, "I'll show you what generous looks like in court filings and restraining orders." He laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "You don't have the stomach for that. Try me." For a beat, we just stood there. Then he straightened his cuffs, grabbed the envelope, and walked to the door. Before stepping out, he glanced over his shoulder. "You know, he said most mothers would be grateful someone loves their daughter enough to plan for the future." I walked to the door and opened it for him. "Grateful," I said. Then I slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, hearing my father's voice. "Trust is a ladder, Marion. Easy to climb, easier to fall. Only a fool lets someone shake it from below." I'd been careful. I'd hidden the money, buried the paperwork behind legal walls thicker than concrete. But Lucas didn't need to break into a vault. He was doing something worse. He was breaking into her. I opened my laptop and wrote a letter to my lawyer. Then a second one addressed to Sophia. A different kind of will. Not about money. About memory. I wrote about her as a child, her laugh at age 6, the way she hugged with her whole body, her first heartbreak, the dog she named Moon because she thought it looked like sadness. I wanted her to remember who she was before him, but as I sealed the envelope, my hand trembled. Because what if she didn't open it? What if she was already too far gone? There's a sound a heart makes when it snaps. It isn't loud. It's not a scream or a sob. It's a breath you don't realize you're holding until you do, and everything caves in. It happened in the middle of brunch. A sunny Sunday French toast, with burnt edges, orange juice with too much pulp, just how she liked it. I invited Sophia alone. No mention of Lucas. No mention of lawyers. Just, let's eat. Just us, like before. And for a minute, it almost worked. She smiled at first, asked about the old hydrangeas in the garden, commented on how much weight I'd lost. "You look good, Mom, but not too good," she joked. Her voice was light, but there was something behind it, something tight. Halfway through her coffee, she reached into her purse and set down a folder. I didn't touch it. She tapped it nervously. "Lucas said you felt ambushed before. I get it. So this is just everything. Full transparency. It's not even finalized, just ideas. That's what she called a formal request to designate her and her husband as joint financial advisors on my private holdings. I read about generational wealth structures," she continued. "This way we're not caught off guard if anything happens to you." I stared at the soft crinkle forming between her brows, the one she got from me. Her hand trembled slightly as she passed me the pen. It was the same pen her father used to sign our mortgage 29 years ago. The cruelty of it made my jaw ache. "You think this is what I want?" I whispered. She looked up, startled. "What do you mean this?" I gestured to the folder. "Contracts, paperwork, lawyers. You treating me like a ticking clock with a price tag." Her face fell. "Mom, it's not like that." "Then tell me what it is, Sophia. Tell me how a month after your wedding, your husband knows about a trust fund I never once mentioned. How you just happen to want full access to accounts under a name you never used growing up." She went pale. "Lucas said he said it came from public record searches, that anyone can look up corporate holdings. He was just trying to protect us." I stood, hands braced on the table. "He's trying to own us." "Mom, no. You listen to me. I have watched you shrink next to him. I have watched you censor yourself, avoid eye contact, parrot his language, and now you're standing in my kitchen trying to sell me peace of mind while you deliver a leash." Tears sprang into her eyes. "I thought you'd trust me." "I do," I said, "but not him." She picked up the pen. Her fingers shook. She clicked it over and over again, until I reached out and gently stopped her. "I'm not signing," I said. She looked like I had slapped her. "Why?" she whispered. "Because I remember who you were before he met you, and I refuse to fund the version of you that he's building." For a second, her mask cracked, her lip trembled, and just as quickly she snapped it back in place. "You've always thought I was too soft," she said bitterly. "Too trusting. Maybe Lucas was right. You never believed I could take care of myself." "I always believed it," I said quietly. "I just never expected you'd take care of him instead." She stood abruptly. The chair scraped hard against the tile. "I shouldn't have come." And she left. The silence she left behind wasn't empty. It was full, dense, like smoke in the lungs. I sat there for hours, staring at the folder, staring at the pen, and I made a decision. I wouldn't just protect my money. I would protect her, even if it meant losing her in the process. 3 days passed. No calls, no knock at the door, just the quiet echo of what we'd both said and hadn't said. I woke up every morning hoping I'd hear her voice, and every night I replayed the look on her face when she left. Betrayal? Yes, but underneath it, confusion, like someone had handed her a map and she didn't know which way was north anymore. On the 4th morning, I received an alert from my bank. Failed login attempt. Unusual location. IP address, Wilmington, North Carolina, Lucas's hometown. My blood went cold. I pulled up the security dashboard. 2 more attempts. Someone trying to access an offshore account linked to a private holding I hadn't touched in 12 years. The trust, buried so deep in legal insulation that even I needed a flowchart to find it. They were digging. No, they were mining. I called my attorney Helen Yates, an old friend from college, who knew the bones of every trust fund I'd ever stitched together. Send me everything she said, and start screen recording your bank activity. Every click, every alert. We need a trail. By the time I finished cataloging it all, the evidence was damning. 3 login attempts, all using credential fragments tied to Sophia's old email. Password hint requests triggered from a device listed under her name, but the most crushing blow, a security question answer. What was your childhood pet's name? They got it right. Only she would know that. Moon. The dog she cried over for 3 days straight when he passed. That night I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I wrote a letter. No, not a letter, a will. One that bypassed Sophia entirely. One that transferred every cent into a non-profit I had been funding in secret for years. Domestic violence shelters across 3 counties. I added a clause, funds locked, irrevocable final. If they wanted access, they'd have to burn through a wall of legal fire. And still I didn't sleep, because this wasn't about money anymore. It was about losing her. Watching her spiral so far from herself that she couldn't tell the difference between manipulation and devotion. I needed proof, not for me, for her, so I called a PI, a quiet one, ex-FBI, the kind who doesn't advertise. Follow him, I said. Track every click, every late-night call, every file he moves on her laptop. 2 days later, the package arrived. Photos, screenshots, logs. Lucas had used Sophia's login on at least 3 occasions, had transferred her files to an encrypted thumb drive, had even God help me recorded a voice memo dated the night after our brunch. In it, his voice was slurred, smug, sickening. Old woman's not gonna last much longer. Just need her to crack a little. Soph'll sign the rest if she thinks it's her idea. That was the twist that split me in 2. It wasn't just greed, it was calculation. He had played the long game, mapped it, measured it, knew that the quickest way into a family is through the heart, and he'd wrapped himself around mine like a vine choking a tree. And Sophia. She let him, or maybe she didn't know. Maybe that was the worst part. I wasn't sure which would hurt more, that she helped him, or that she believed him, but the decision had already been made. I sent the recording to Helen, along with the full security log, and 1 sentence in the email body: I want him buried. Quietly, legally, permanently. Then I picked up the phone and called my daughter. Voicemail. Again. So I left a message. Just 1. Sweetheart, it's Mom. There's something you need to hear, but you'll have to decide if you want to know the truth or keep pretending. Either way, I love you. That hasn't changed. But everything else has. She showed up at 10:42 p.m. No makeup. Hoodie. Eyes red from crying or fighting. Maybe both. Is it true? She asked, before I could speak. What the message said, I didn't nod, didn't speak. Instead, I held out my phone, pressed play on the recording. Lucas's voice, thick with whiskey and contempt, slithered out of the speaker. Old woman's not gonna last much longer, just need her to crack a little. Sophia froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came. I watched it hit her, not like a slap, but like a wave that drags you under so slowly you don't realize you're drowning until the salt burns your throat. She sank onto the couch, shoulders caving. I didn't know she whispered. I swear to God, Mom, I didn't know. She buried her face in her hands, and I could see it unravel every conversation, every nudge from him to check her old emails, to search for missing pieces of her family history, to help protect the future. I thought he was helping, she said. No, I replied, sitting beside her. He was harvesting. She lifted her head, eyes wet. He used me to get to you. No, I said again. He used you to get to what he thought I was hiding. She stared into space. When we met, he said I was too good for him, she murmured, that I'd save him. He meant it, I said, just not the way you thought. Silence settled between us like dust in an old room. Then she turned. What do we do now? I handed her a folder. Inside the PI's full report, security logs, bank alerts, and the signed affidavit from my lawyer verifying everything. She flipped through it all. At the last page, she paused. What's this A, draft of annulment paperwork? I said quietly. And a prenup reversal clause. He signed it after the wedding, slipped it in among the thank you cards. He never thought you'd look. She stared at the signature. Her hands trembled. And then the twist. She shook her head slowly. He knew, she said. Knew what about the dog? The security question. Moon? I stiffened. He asked me about him once, said he wanted to name our first dog the same as a tribute, said it would be romantic. The nausea was instant, heavy. I didn't even think twice, she said. I gave him the answer. He didn't just guess. He'd mined her for data wrapped in memories. Used love like spyware. I'm so sorry, she said, voice cracking, but I didn't want her apology. I wanted justice. We meet him tomorrow, I said. Her eyes flared. What public place? Legal witness? 2 copies of the report. He walks away clean or we go to the police. She swallowed hard. You think he'll just let go? No, I said, but I think he'll bluff, and this time we call it. The next morning, we met at a hotel lounge, neutral upscale quiet. Lucas arrived looking polished and smug as if he didn't smell the trap. When he saw Sophia sitting beside me, instead of across, something flickered. Soph, he asked, that tone he used when he was unsure whether to charm or corner. She didn't respond. I slid the folder across the table, read it carefully. He opened it, saw the first screenshot his voice captured, his words time-stamped, then the bank logs, the login attempts, the voice memo. Faked, he said instantly, all of it. I slid another folder across, the signed post-nup annulment clause. He went still. That won't hold up. Oh, I smiled. But it already has. 3 attorneys verified it. He stood abruptly. You 2 are making a mistake. Sophia stood too. No, she said. We're fixing one. His smile vanished. His hands twitched. You think anyone will believe you over me? I reached into my purse and pulled out a flash drive. This is going to my lawyer, unless you sign. Today. Here. He stared at the papers at the 2 of us standing shoulder to shoulder, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked small, cornered, and suddenly very afraid. He picked up the pen, signed, walked out, didn't look back. Sophia cried in the parking lot, not for him, not for the money, but for the years she'd never get back, for the version of herself she'd lost trying to prove she was lovable enough to be saved. You are, I said, holding her tight, and you never needed him to prove it. The house was too quiet the next morning, not in a lonely way, but in that strange sacred calm that follows a storm that could have taken everything but didn't. Sophia stood in the kitchen, barefoot hair pulled up in a messy knot, like when she was 15 and too tired to pretend. She poured herself coffee in the same mug she used to steal from me, the one that said, "Do no harm, but take no shit." It felt right. She hadn't moved back in yet, but she'd stayed the night, on the couch at first, then in her old room door slightly cracked. I didn't say a word. I just left a clean blanket at the foot of her bed and a photo of her at age 8, grinning with missing teeth and dirt on her knees. A reminder. You've been brave before. She took her coffee and joined me on the porch, eyes heavy but steadier than I'd seen in weeks. I keep thinking about all the little ways she said, how he chipped at me. I nodded. It always starts small. He'd joke about my clothes, offer to help with my calendar. One day he changed my email password, as a favor. I laughed. We sat in silence. Why didn't I see it? You did, I said. You just thought it was love. Her chin trembled, but she didn't cry. Did I almost become him? No, I said firmly. You almost forgot who you were. That's different. She turned toward me. You're going to hate this question. Try me. She took a breath. Is it true? About the $5 million I met her gaze. I've been asking myself the same thing I said. She blinked. What I've been wondering if you deserve to know. If knowing would protect you or ruin you. She said nothing. I didn't hide it because I didn't trust you. I hid it because I trusted the world less. She nodded slowly. So, I pulled out a small envelope. Inside the original trust documents. Not a copy. The real ones. Read it when you're ready, I said. But know this, the money was never the point. It's the freedom it gives you. And now I trust you to use it. Her hands closed around the envelope like she was holding something sacred and heavy. Then she looked at me. I want to use some of it to help other women, she said. The ones who don't make it out. My throat tightened. I already started a fund, I whispered. Years ago. Then I want to grow it. She reached over and took my hand. You built something strong, Mom. I want to stand inside it. There it was. Hope. Not flashy, not loud. Just a quiet, steady kind of rebuilding, the kind that takes root in burned ground. Later that week, she filed the annulment paperwork. Lucas didn't fight it. He'd already slithered to a new city, probably hunting his next target. But we weren't afraid of him anymore. We were busy. By month's end, we had a name for the fund, the Moon Trust, because some love stories start with heartbreak, and some daughters find their way back under the light of something old, faithful, and whole. Maybe you saw a piece of yourself, or someone you love, in this story. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your child and protecting the truth, if you've ever been gaslit, cornered, or made to doubt your gut, then please leave a comment, share your voice. You are not alone. Tell us what would you have done if you were in her shoes. And if this story hit home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes stories like this aren't just fiction. They're warnings, and sometimes they're reminders that it's never too late to take back your power.